Ladies and gentlemen, whether you realize it or not, chess has one fundamental flaw. That it's extremely addicting, will consume your life, and likely cause depression. But beyond that, it has one more small problem with it. It's the fact that if two players play a perfect game of chess, they both play optimally, the game is a draw. We see this happen a lot at Grandmaster level. Also, we see Grandmasters drawing a lot very quickly, in forced lines very early because they don't want to play the game for various reasons. Now, not all draws are the same. Sometimes a player is winning, then losing, then they make a draw. Now, if that cycle continues like 20 times in a game, well then you're gonna have a good time. It's kind of like going to the circus. It's very entertaining. So, with that in mind, today's circus is the game played between Mr. Vora, who submitted this game from the country of internationalflagonchess.com, and Mr. Anonymous from the UAE. Now, both these players have titles despite their ratings in the 600s because they were awarded them as an honorary measure due to this absolutely complex battle that they provided the audience. So, the game begins with pawn to d4, knight to f6, and a London opening. Very good opening. Obviously, no complaints here. Now, black plays d6. Generally, if black goes d6 very early, probably the next thing that's going to come is g6, bishop g7. Black wants kind of a third rank or a sixth rank setup. Very flexible, and oftentimes the center will be attacked with the e or the c pawn, but usually, again, you need to put your bishop out this way because you've blocked it in. White continues standard. Knight c6 it's not necessarily the best move. It's not necessarily the best move because you really don't want to allow your opponent just free opportunities to attack your pieces. Knight c6 with this setup isn't optimal, but it's also not anything bad. Knight to f3 is great, preventing the move e5. And now black already plays a move on move 4, which is borderline completely lost. From a strategic standpoint, which is a little bit above the pay grade here. Why is this such a bad move? Well, first of all, it's move 4, and you've already put 6 of your 8 pawns on the same color, right? Like, that means your light squares are really weak. This knight in particular now has completely no stability, and it's like, if you already opened up the path for your bishop, why are you reconsidering, right? Like, you don't need that. You already have a front and a back door in your house, potentially. If you live in the suburbs, I guess. If you have an apartment, you don't have a back door, but you don't need like a side door. You're not gonna break a wall down just to build a third door. Or I don't know, maybe you will. I have no idea, okay? Maybe some of my wealthy viewers are like, I have 7 doors, and a lot of security cameras. I don't know. But the point is that this is very weak. And white now can expand in the center or play a move like bishop to b5, and like very quickly black can lose the game because you get the knight pinned to the king. So this is a little bit suspicious. White plays c4. I don't hate this move. Now, so far, white is playing like legitimately their title. Okay, here black plays queen d7. The reason queen d7 is a very suspect move is because you've just put nothing out, right? And since white already actually has a very stable position, white can start playing moves like d5 and forcing the knight to go back, for example, to d8, and then just continuing to take more space and more space and more space. But white plays a very solid bishop e2, and here black just goes completely insane, and the entire point of their opening becomes obvious. Obviously, Levy is an idiot. b6 and d6 were played to put the bishop and the queen behind, and long castles has been played. Now, white is completely winning. White is completely winning because this is what's known as a suboptimal setup. It's just bad. Like, this is not a good way to organize your pieces if you're going to castle queenside, because, for example, your knight will be targeted. You have no central presence, so if you like move your knight out to the side, it will just get trapped. If you move your knight forward, it will be attacked and then ultimately become a target in white's initiative upon you. But white is very principled, and prior to going into battle, proceeds to play short castle. Black plays rook g8. Perhaps the quest there on chess.com was slide your rook over 1 square and we will award you a 1-month diamond membership. I don't know. The other idea is to trampoline, springboard the pawns here, boing, toward the opponent. Okay, not completely illogical. Now, opposite side castling, what do you know? First of all, any pawn move in the center, again, to attack a knight to gain space without overextending, gotta be a good move. d5 is always a good move. I don't hate the move a3. The idea of pawn to a3 is actually to play knight to a2, and then knight to c1, and then knight to d3. No, it's just to play b4. Okay, e6, and there it is. I love what white is doing here, which is why white got the Grandmaster title. Okay, at this point, complete nonsense begins to commence. We are right at that point. You've made it 4.5 minutes, all right? Maybe you've never lasted longer in your life. Maybe you have, I don't know. But here we go, all right? Now is the price of admission to the circus, which was free. Only you have to maybe watch some ads. b5. Holy moly, b5 just makes absolutely no sense. I mean, you are basically going to the beach when the hurricane is upon you and throwing rocks at it. I mean, I don't know what you're doing, because that move hangs upon 3 different ways. It's protected 3 times, and it opens up the attack even faster. Now, c takes b5 is an excellent move to attack the knight. The computer doesn't like it because it thinks that knight takes b5 is better. This is when you analyze with the computer, and then it's like, this is an inaccuracy, and you're like, how is that inaccurate? I took a pawn. So the knight goes back to e7, okay? Now, beautiful follow-up here, queen a4, looking for the a7 pawn. Here's what I would say. It's a little bit suspicious to let your queen do the attacking. You need to kind of have the queen right at the back, ready, because if black just plays king b8 here, you're not making any forward progress. Like, you need another piece. Yeah, you see? Every piece is kind of at the... Now the queen's got to go back and make room for the pawns. So be a little careful that your queen doesn't just get stranded. However, in this game, black once again plays a completely insane move, pawn to c6, completely disallowing... disregarding the pawn on a7, and of course white takes it, because white had a little bit of tunnel vision. And now black proceeds to play the only move that loses the game. The only move. Now, black is losing, but it is the only move that loses the game. And you might see it says M1, which is probably a type of car or a government building in the UK. If you'd like to find mate in 1 here, you're more than welcome. This move loses because you've opened up the bishop, okay? It's queen b8 mate. This is why you always, always, always look for checks. Always. Now, in this position, white plays the move pawn takes c6. This is not the worst move in the world. You still maintain a plus 13 or higher advantage. However, white spent 1 second on this move. I'm not kidding. White had 9:27 on the clock, and when they played this move, had 9:26. 9:26. Many moves make sense here. Rolling through with the knight. Come through to b6. That's game over. There is no way you can stop that without losing your queen. Knight to e5, attacking the queen. Also a fantastic move. Computer says that the best thing to do here is to lose the queen. I'm not even joking. That is legitimately what it says. But bc6, knight c6. Okay. Now here, white spends a little bit of time and clearly is just looking for another way forward. And it's like, well, hey, you know, that knight and that queen are on the same diagonal, so I'm going to play this move bishop to b5. Bishop to b5 very much does pin the knight to the queen. However, it completely hangs a queen. You just forget about the queen, which is why when you wander off with your queen, you need to make sure it's always safe. The good thing is that after knight takes a7, which obviously free queen is a good thing, black is still in some trouble here because of how open the king is. But luckily for white, black was like, oh my god, I want to take the queen, but I don't want to lose my queen. I'm pinned. I don't want to lose my queen if I take the queen, so I'm going to lose my queen in 1 move. I'm going to lose my queen in 1 move. But instead of that, white was like, oh my god, I almost hung my queen. What am I doing? I got to get my queen out of there. So I'm going to get my queen out of there and hang my queen in 1 move. But white doesn't even see this. So now black takes the queen and white's like, oh, damn, it always happens to me, damn, and just, you know, angrily snaps back the capture. But the crazy thing is, this is still hanging. And actually, white is still winning. Because when the dust settles, white is still 2 pawns up. So white was probably like, god damn it, it's another game where Levy angrily spits on his microphone by accident because he gets so excited about the game, but also because I hang my queen. Yeah, you just bishop take. So the dust settles in the game. And black is like, well, here I need to play a positional move. You see, I'm quite unhappy with the positioning of my knight, and I'd like to jump it into my opponent's territory, and plays the move knight to a5. Now, under normal circumstances, that's an excellent decision. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, even if your queen isn't hanging. But, you know, it's fine. Okay, whatever. You know, you're making a safe move. And now, finally, white's like, ooh, queen. So now white is still winning. The dust has settled. Queens were very, very deliberately hung there. Now, how do you win this? Well, you're 2 pawns up, so you got to move a knight into the middle to attack a weakness. I would double the rooks up on the only open file that you have, because you just move your bishop, and then you try to break in. Maybe you push these pawns. So let's see what white does. Great move. Love that move. The plan for black continues, knight to b3. Now, this could not have been more telegraphed. Like, it is so obvious what they want, and black went to the lengths of losing a full queen to make this plan possible. Like, black must have been like, ooh, if I go here and here, I attack the rook. Don't do that. Don't make 2 moves to make a 1-move threat. That doesn't make any sense at all. So takes, but white is like, hey, danger levels. Okay, danger levels is very much a thing. If you take on a1, I take on d8, totally. But what happens when they danger your level? That's a problem, because now they attack your knight and this. Now, what white should do here is actually recreate a threat on these two pieces. This is very difficult. This is not a one-move threat, this is a two-move threat. You play this move to attack this, which would ultimately fork. That is how you would continue to do this. It's not so easy, and you obviously don't want to go here, although if you lose the knight, if you lose the rook for the knight, you're still winning, because white is still up material because of the pawn advantage, and is still winning because they just dominate the whole queen side. Black just has another rook, an extra rook for a knight and several pawns. But at this point, white was like, my knight is hanging. This is attacking this. Well, easy does it. I'm gonna go here. This is where y'all get in trouble, because you only make a move like this, and you don't think in your mind, where is that piece gonna go? And black's like, well, I'm just gonna continue my journey. Now, white has 3 hanging pieces. All right, 3 of them. 2 rooks, now, and a knight. What is the best to lose? Would you rather lose a knight for free? Or would you rather lose a rook for a knight? You would rather lose a rook for a knight. So back up, lose the rook, take the L, get the knight, you'll be fine. Very simple math there. But at this point, white just has a meltdown, absolute meltdown, and plays bishop to a6. White decided it was not enough to have 3 hanging pieces. White wanted to hang all of their pieces. I guess white thought, well, if they take this or this, I will take that. Folks, bishops don't attack bishops, all right? That's like looking in the mirror and trying to punch yourself in the face. That's not going to work, because now you have the same problems, but you have 1 less bishop. And this bishop is also attacking this. At this point, white's like, oh, damn, knight takes d5. So now white not only has 3 hanging pieces still, white has lost 6 points for 1. So white has gone from being winning, mate in 1, back to winning, to black being winning, to white being winning, to now this, when white is about to lose everything. So what does white do? Finally moves the knight out of the way. Now knight takes f1. At this point, I hope you understand, the best decision is not to take this, because you need some sort of pieces remaining on the board, okay? If you take on f1, then you will lose this, and that actually is exactly what happens. Now you're probably sitting there going, wait, this video is called what? The greatest draw ever. Well, obviously that means now that black probably messes something up, right? Yeah. The real thing is, it's you know the answer. You know the answer to the test, but you just don't know how to get there. You know what I mean? You're about to see. So first of all, anytime you're completely winning like this, you need to activate these 2 pieces. And what I would recommend is just sacking a rook for the knight. Just going like this. Well, by the way, even that was a mouse slip though. Even this, just get rid of it. Rook and knight will defeat 6 pawns easily, unless you're featured in one of the other games. So knight to c3, this move doesn't do anything. This is actually capturable, because it's pinned, and that would have been very bad. And then you can just sack like everything for everything. You don't need to, but of course you don't have to. Knight to c3. Now what does white do? White plays f3, good move. Black says, I kind of want to fight on more equal terms. Let me give you this pawn for absolutely 0 reason. That's just a free pawn. King c6, and white plays the move knight to e4. Knight to e4 does absolutely defend this pawn, 100%. But it also just cleanly hangs a knight. Like, you don't even think here for a moment. You just take this, and you're also lucky that white cannot recapture. White is now down 8 points of material, and only has pawns, some of which cannot even move. So it's over. At that point, you just play Pac-Man, and it's over. But black was like, whoa, my knight's hanging, which it's not. Plays knight d5, and rook e8. White plays king d3. Of course, white should play f4, defending the pawn. But we have king d3, here. The rook moves out of the way. White is like, I don't want to lose more pieces. I already decided to lose all my pieces. And here, white plays a genius move. Pawn to f5. I love that move. And now black is probably like, wait a minute, my rook is kind of locked out. What do I do? That's not very good. So let me go g4. That's good. Trading some pieces. But panics. Doesn't realize that rook takes g4 is possible, or must think that knight f6 is a fork of the rooks when it's just cleanly not a fork of the rooks. So plays rook to h1. Now white's like, well, I've been granted pawns. I only have pawns and a horse. I might as well push my pawns. All right, rook d1, king e2. And black just has a blind spot for some reason with horses, because they play knight c3 check, which is just a clean one mover. Like knight takes c3, and there you go. Now you got knight and 6 pawns versus 2 rooks and 1, which somehow is only a 2-point material difference. Make no mistake about it, black is completely winning this position, but somehow when every pawn is defended, you start malfunctioning a little bit. The way black needs to win this game is to go after the knight, deflect it away from some stuff, and if white is silly enough, there are moments you can take, maybe not right now, maybe, because you don't know how many pawns white can actually utilize, but the engine still thinks that this endgame is winning. But I would recommend just keeping the rooks on the board. But okay, knight to f6, rook e5, and now black has no pawns. And this, folks, is where people completely lose their minds, because they don't know how to promote without, I'm sorry, they don't know how to properly play with pawns in the endgame. They don't know how to promote pawns, and when they lose the pawns are very easy to play with once you have them. All you gotta do is do this. You just gotta push them. You just gotta push the pawns. And for some reason, beginners have massive blind spots. Like, for example, rook takes f5, this is the move played in the game. Like, black is very lucky this move doesn't just win on the spot, because nothing can go to the g file. So the only way to win this would be to give a check, take this, and then go after this. Right? People are just, for some reason, very bad at timing pawn stoppages. So king to d2, rook a1. Now you gotta throw in the attack on the rook. Maybe black is gonna take on a3 or something and lose the rook, but black doesn't. That's it. Black is completely clear. The rook has now taken on g2. It's covering this. There is literally no way to defend this pawn except this move. Unbelievably clutch find by white. Unbelievably clutch. If you would have lost that pawn in the a3 pawn, you would have lost this game immediately. King c4, for some reason not taking the a3 pawn with check, which you went and set up. Now rook a2. I would not recommend you tie your rooks like this together, but rook f2 is a threat on this knight. So what does white play? e5. Now, the game is over here. It's mate in two. If you want to solve this with black, you're more than welcome. It's something known as a mating net. You want to play this move, but you want to disallow the king any escape, and you play king d3. That is an absolutely savage move. Now the king is just trapped. It's completely trapped. King d3 is a beautiful move. However, if you want to play here, here, and just win the knight, be my guest. You can also do it with the other rook, and this is winning because two pawns will just not make any progress. But king d5. You see, white uses the pawn as a smokescreen, and now the king comes back. Still completely winning, of course. Pawn to e6, king d6, and now white is like, well, I might as well bring my king. I mean, my knight is stuck defending both of the pawns. Black, of course, continues the journey down to e7, and white plays king f5 defending both pawns, but just confidently losing the knight. Now black is just cleanly winning. But instead, at this point, black is like, actually, I can give a check and win the knight, which 100% accurate. That's it. Levy, I have no idea. You lied to me. I've watched for 17 minutes straight. Where is the draw? It doesn't make any sense. White has no... Yeah, well, king h6. Now, what do you need to worry about with black? Losing on time, but that's not a concern here. Stalemate, right? You need to worry about stalemate. Don't stalemate here. Okay, let's start taking the pawns. Very good. King takes e6. Pawn to g7. Now, just don't hang a rook. Don't do that. Okay, check. A little bit scary. But okay. Rook g8. Okay, that's it. Only a4 and king g5 are the legal moves. One of them loses the pawn. So what do? You don't lose the pawn. Black can give a check and go here. Black plays king e7. Okay, pawn to a5. All right, you might as well push. All right, rook a2. All right, we distracted him. Pawn to a6. Rook a6, king h7. Now, what I think black wanted here was to play king f7, but they realized it is stalemate. And that is not how the game ended. That's not how the game ended. Black was like, wait a minute. That's stalemate, but my rook's hanging, so I can't defend my rook, so I'm gonna just sack the rook for the pawn. Brilliant! Absolutely genius. Except you can play rook back. You can go all the way back with the rook. Not a problem. I don't hate it. Absolutely genius. Now, the king is completely boxed in. It has nowhere to go. If you don't know how to mate with king and rook, okay, I can give you a pass here. But black actually began making progress. You see, black played rook f6, king h8. Now, the easiest way to do this, completely cut the king off on the row, here, and use the king. Force the king back, boom, mate. Done. However, this game proceeds with king to g7. There was a check here. And as black attempts to get white back into the box, they see white running away. And they're like, oh, damn, I gotta set up the box again by losing the rook in one move. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the greatest draw I think I've ever seen.